guys, welcome back to episode 2 of Perfectly Untrue, the Friendship Recession. So before we delve into the next episode, I just want to give a quick, disclaimer, about everything that's new and upcoming with Perfectly Untrue. So firstly, I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone for all your support, like the reposts, the sharing, the likes, everything. Like, you guys have been really supporting this podcast, and it's truly so heartwarming to see. Like, I don't think my heart has ever been more full. Seriously, I cannot thank you enough. Things have been pretty like hectic on my side. I'm still trying to figure everything out. So, it is definitely a learning process, but we're just gonna try to stick it out. If you guys can hear any audio changes or anything like that in today's episode, it's because we're dealing with a new microphone. So we're still trying to figure out the ropes. So if you guys feel like, this audio quality is not as good as the last one, or, you have any mic suggestions or literally any suggestions or help at all, please feel free to drop it down in the comments or even just send me a DM. Honestly, anything helps. Like I said, we're still trying to navigate everything, so anything helps. Additionally, I know that the scheduling of Perfectly Untrue has been a little inconsistent lately. Just to clear some things up about that, I'm still a student, so I'm trying to, kind of juggle school and academics as well as work. I was working 2 jobs, but I've cut down to 1 now, and then I think in December I'm probably gonna pick something up again and work 2 jobs once more. So that's kind of why scheduling has been a little inconsistent. The podcast has definitely been something I've always wanted to do, but kind of being swung into it all of a sudden despite preparation, like, it's been a little hard to deal with. So that's why, starting off the podcast, we're dealing with, some inconsistent scheduling. Some episodes aren't getting uploaded in time, or I'm still trying to figure out distribution and everything. So I'm really sorry about that. I hope we can kind of get a swing of things and, figure everything out. Hopefully from here on out, the scheduling will be a little more consistent, and you guys will be getting monthly uploads. So talking about scheduling for Perfectly Untrue, episodes will come out every end of the month, unless there's like a big holiday or something. So for example, for episode 3 upcoming, we'll be scheduling it on December 30th instead of the 31st, just because the 31st is New Year's Eve. So if there is like a big holiday or a big event coming up or something like that that is worldwide, then essentially what we'll be doing is we'll be moving the release date 1 day ahead from the scheduled time. So in the case of December 31st, it'll be moved to the 30th. So yeah, that's kind of everything in terms of the updates for Perfectly Untrue. Again, thank you so much to everyone for being so patient about everything. I really appreciate it. Again, it's my first go at these things, and I think despite all the preparation that I put into the first episode, like, I laid everything out, I had all these plans. Obviously, things are gonna take a turn, and things are gonna come at you unexpectedly, and I think that definitely happened. Specifically with the release of that episode, I was still trying to figure everything out, and, it was the first time that I distributed a podcast, and I realized, you can't actually just upload it. Like, it takes timed scheduling and everything like that, and there's a bunch of different components that come into play. So I'm just trying to figure that all out. But again, thank you so much for joining me along the journey, and I really appreciate all of you. Okay, so going into the friendship recession, today we're gonna talk about a bit of a conundrum that has swept the world, and this is known as the friendship recession. So before I begin, this episode is inspired by the likes of Richard Reeves with his video The Friendship Recession on Big Think, as well as Dustin Vuong. So if you're interested in this topic, I definitely recommend those two videos. They were huge, huge inspirations for this, and they really, I guess, forefronted this idea. So thank you so much to the two of those. And yeah, we'll begin. Okay, so to start off this podcast, I'm going to be talking a bit about a crazy story that happened to me. And while you're listening, this might seem really, really off topic, but just trust the process. So basically, a few months ago, I think literally in July, I was getting super into hiking. So I was like seeing all these hiking videos and I was like, oh my gosh, I should totally try hiking again. Like I'd done it in the past, but not for a very, very long time. And I was like, oh, I should totally do hiking again. So in the summertime, I was like super into hiking. I started hiking with my aunt. I started hiking with other friends. And I just really wanted to be more active alongside with, going to the gym and things like that. So I was starting to pick up hiking again, basically. And me and a couple of friends decided to go to this hiking spot in Vancouver. And one of them was a really well-rounded, experienced hiker. And the other one was, he had hiked in the past before, but, trying to get back into it kind of thing. So similar position as me. So all three of us, and there was a fourth one as well, but unfortunately she couldn't make it. But yeah, so the three of us basically decided, okay, let's go on this hiking trip. It was super impromptu, but we were like, it would be so much fun. Let's just do it. So we decided to go on this hiking trip. And it was a pretty easy hike, or it was medium level, I'd say. So pretty much it would follow the path of this easy route, this easy hike. Because they were all ranked in different levels. So there was easy, medium, and then hard, and then very hard, right? So it would follow the path of this easy route, and then it would be an extension off. So if you only wanted to follow the easy route, then you would just come back down at the checkpoint, right? But if you wanted to do the harder hike, then you would, continue along that route onto the extension path past the checkpoint. So basically we decided, okay, let's do this one because if we're not feeling up to it, we can just turn back. So we go on this hike and we're hiking up this mountain and low-key was hard as hell, but my friend was just like, you can do it, just keep going. We gotta carry the logs. It was some metaphor, but it was like, who's gonna carry the logs? We're gonna carry the logs. So we were hiking up this mountain and we made it to the checkpoint. And then we did the whole extension path and then we were coming back down from it. So at the top of the, I guess, harder hike, there's a huge waterfall and we stayed there for a little bit. It was honestly so beautiful. And it made everything so worth it. But then we were like, okay, let's pack it up. Let's go back down. So we were going back down the hike and then we reached the checkpoint spot, right? So we're starting to enter the easier hike now, right? But keep in mind, we still have about an hour and a half to go. We were all pretty tired because at this point we had done 2 hikes and we were coming back down from one, right? So we were like, okay, let's take a little bit of a break at the checkpoint. And we kind of looked around and we saw water. So we were like, oh, let's go check it out. So we go down and there's this huge ravine and we're like, wow, this is so cool. Let's just chill here for a little bit. Maybe we can swim if it's not too cold. So we just hang there for a bit. We're skipping rocks. We're collecting rocks, whatever. And there's another group of people that was sitting not even too far away from us, but a decent amount. I'd say they were sitting a whole school bus width and a half away from us. So there was another group there and they were skipping rocks. And they were pretty far from us. We didn't know them, And then they were skipping rocks and this one guy, he has a pretty hard swing, but we don't know him. He's just a stranger to us. We see him and he's skipping rocks, and we're like, damn, like that dude has a really hard throw. And he's skipping rocks, and then he throws the rock, and all of a sudden he's screaming, heads, heads, heads. And we're all like, what? And I don't know if it's just my reaction time, but basically I was the furthest away from that group. So it was my two friends in front of me, closer to them, and then I was on the side, kind of curved, right? And this rock that this guy threw, he threw it so hard and it literally curves, and he's screaming heads, 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 because the rock's gonna hit someone, right? He doesn't want that to happen. And then my two friends, they end up ducking. One of them like turns around, right? I didn't realize what was happening in time because I was so far away, so I couldn't really hear him till like the last second. And I turn my head because I'm realizing, oh my god, this dude's saying heads. Oh my god, there's a flying rock in the air. Long story short, I got hit by that rock. So that rock basically pummels in my face, and trigger warning, graphic of blood and whatnot. But this rock pummels my face basically, and I'm holding my head and I'm like, oh my god, what the heck? I just feel this like boom pressure, and I'm like, oh my god, what do I do? I felt like I was gonna faint, and I'm just holding my head. I don't know what's happening. My friends rush over to me, and I look up at them and they're like, are you okay? Are you okay? What happened? What happened? And I'm like, I don't know. And I'm like crying, right? Because I was in so much pain. I lift down my hands because I was holding my head, and the blood just comes gushing out because it's a head injury. And all I could see was just, the blood like coming down my legs and my hands. And I was like, oh my god. Like, and my face felt swollen too, right? Because I just felt the swollenness. I don't even know if that's a word. That's probably not. But because I just felt the swelling of my head, and then the blood just gushing down, and all I could see was just that. It's like my POV. I'm thinking, oh my god, this is the worst head injury in the world. And my friends are looking at me and their jaws are to the ground. And when they were telling me about this later, they said when the rock first hit my head was swelled like an inch and a half off my face. That's crazy. Like, let that sink in. But anyway, so I'm freaking out. And for some reason, my two friends, they were so calm. Like, I think if I were in their position, I honestly would have freaked out too. And I would have completely lost it. And I honestly would freeze up. I wouldn't know what to do. But the other group, they came over. One of them had a med kit. And it was this weird sense of camaraderie all of a sudden. And keep in mind, we had just met these people. They were completely, like, we had no clue who they were. They were complete strangers. And one of them was like wiping down, the side of my leg because it was bloody. Like another one, the main guy, like the guy who hit me with the rock, he was like, disinfecting my head. He was putting gauze on it. He was like wrapping a bandage around really tight. And like another one was wiping blood off me. And it was just like my two friends were to the side of me, like holding my hand. I was like, oh my god, what do I do? Like, what do I tell my mom? Like, she's gonna freak out. Like, am I gonna have a scar on my head forever? Like, my brain is just going to all the worst possibilities in the world. And then I think I was supposed to go on like a date or something. I don't know if it was a first date, but I was supposed to go on a date literally the day after with my current boyfriend. And I was like, oh my god, I literally have a date tomorrow and I've fucking been pummeled by a rock. What if I'm unrecognizable? Like, oh my gosh, what if this ruins my face forever? Yeah, I know, so narcissistic, but yeah, that's what I was worried about. Because all I could feel was just the swelling of my head and the pain, right? And my friends were to the side of me and they're like, Asia, you're gonna be okay. Like, don't worry. Like, like, you're okay. Like, everything's gonna be fine. Like, nothing's gonna happen. Just take small steps. And we're still in this ravine, right? I like can barely walk. I'm wobbling around. I'm like lightheaded. I'm dizzy. I'm like, oh my God. My friends are holding on to me super tight because they're worried I'm gonna fall, right? And even though we had put a bunch of bandages around me, we disinfected my like head, like all of his stuff, right? My like my head was still gushing out blood. Like it was still bleeding nonstop. So we literally make our way out of this ravine. We're socks on, like with shoes, basically running through this river. Like we're getting completely drenched and we're just like, whatever, let's just make it out. So we make it out and all of us realize, crap, we're still at the checkpoint. We still have an hour and a half of this hike left to go. Or like half an hour of this hike. I don't even know. But like a significant amount of time. And my head is gushing out blood. And we're with a bunch of strangers that we don't know that just did this. And long story short, my friends and this group of strangers bring me down this mountain. And I somehow, like, all I could think of was just, you know, my friends, my family, my loved ones. And I was just like, I have to make it out. I just have to make it out. Like, think Saint Chroma on Chromacopia from Tyler the Creator. That marching was like in my head. I was like, I need to make it out. I need to make it out of the trenches. Like, I need to make it out. I need to see the light on the other side. I was like, I am making it out of this mountain. So somehow we finished the hour and a half hike in an hour, and with my head gushing out. And then these group of strangers, like, you know, they bring me to the ER in their car. We just got in. We got all their contacts and all of that. And then it was so crazy. It was just like these people that we just met and my two friends suddenly are put in this situation. And it was so random. And then the craziest thing is when we were all at the ER and, you know, the swelling had gone down a lot and we took out the bandages, it felt so much better. And the doctors checked up on me. At first they thought that I needed stitches, but it was actually like a pretty small scratch. It was just the fact that it was like semi deep, and that's why I was, you know, gushing out so much blood. And also it's a head injury, right? So that's where like majority of your blood is. Obviously blood is gonna like boom come out, right? So we were all freaking out, long story short. And the craziest thing is when we left the ER, we ended up talking to the dude that basically almost killed me with a rock. And we ended up finding out, oh my gosh, we have so many common interests. That's so crazy. And we just started talking like we were lifelong friends. And I'm like, wow, I almost got literally annihilated by you, practically assassinated by you. And now we're friends, like now we're chill. And I just think that's so crazy because in a different world, if I just saw this guy walking on the street, I probably wouldn't be friends with him. Like, we, you know, exterior wise, we don't really seem like we would have much in common. And it's likely that we probably wouldn't start a conversation with one another just because people, like, it's kind of weird, right? If you see a stranger on the street and you start having a convo with them, they're going to think, whoa, why are you talking to me, you know? But we ended up being good friends in that ER room, and we loved that ER room, you know, checking up on each other, making sure we were okay and stuff. And I just think that's so crazy. And it wouldn't have happened just on a regular day-to-day basis, but given the circumstances that I was literally hit by a rock, it somehow happened. And not to mention, the two friends that were with me as well, I don't know how to explain this, but we're just completely different in every way possible. Like, we both have completely different majors. We go to different schools. We chose really different career paths in life. Like, you know, especially going into university and everything. We, you know, one of them decided to take a gap year. The other one's at a technical school, and, you know, I'm studying still as well. But yeah, we have different hobbies. Like, I'm into dance, I'm into art, I'm into like all these creative aspects and all these things. And, you know, they're more into like gaming and technical work and, IT, like CS, stuff like that. And we just, all three of us have completely different trajectories in the way that we view our lives. Like, and that's so crazy because that day, I don't think I had felt closer to them than in that moment. Like, I felt so close to them. And we weren't bound by, like, our friendship was not bound by aesthetics. You know, I didn't see these people and I was like, wow, they have really similar fashion sense to me. Like, I should totally be friends with them. Not in any way. Like, in terms of fashion and aesthetical sense, I think we are so, so different in terms of materialistic values. But we're still friends and we're still able to laugh and joke at the end of the day. Similar to that dude that like literally hit me with a rock. We're completely different. But for some reason, you know, this man almost assassinated me and we were talking in an ER room about League of Legends and how I think my mom's gonna kill me when I come home. So yeah. And in that moment, I was so, so scared. Like, I genuinely thought my face was gonna be disfigured forever. And they, you know, reassured me and they were like, we want nothing more than for you to feel okay. And there was no like transactional component of that interactions. And, you know, even though their actions were small, them telling me, you know, things are going to be okay and leading and guiding the way while I had a bloodied head and a group of strangers I barely knew. And even at the end of all of that, after we had come out of the ER, we were like, okay, we gotta go home now. Should we get McDonald's? And they bought me some fries and chicken nuggets. But even though those are such small gestures, that's all I really needed in the moment was just a helping hand. And they gave that to me, and that was enough. So how does this relate to literally anything we're going to be talking about today? Well, let me go into it. So currently, we're in a friendship recession, whether we like to admit it or not. There's an argument that friendships are not as innocent as they once were, that, you know, the relationship of genuine equality doesn't exist anymore. And genuine equality being it's not transactional, when there's no sense of dependency on one another, and when you don't need anything from that other person than just their company. So if I'm friends with you, for example, you know, I'm not in the friendship because I'm trying to get money from you, or I'm not in the friendship from you because you have certain connections and, you know, I want to rise up the ranks or whatever. I'm friends with you because I genuinely like being around you and I think you're a cool person. So it's kind of just the idea that those relationships where it's just you and another human being and seeing each other for who you guys really are is really, really difficult to come by nowadays. Especially, you know, coming out of the pandemic, it's been a stress test for all of our relationships. So, according to Reeves in his video, The Friendship Recession, he states that 15% of young men today report having no close friends. This statistic is compared to the 3% that was featured in the 1990s. So, the COVID-19 pandemic has really, really been a testament to all of our friendship networks. And he says, specifically with women being the most affected due to their friendships, because a lot of their friendships rely on physical contact. This means seeing each other in person, scheduling hangouts, and so on. So this was a statement that was provided by Richard Reeves in the Friendship Recession video. So COVID-19 was a period in time that, you know, really forced people to stay isolated in the light of the pandemic. You know, as a result of being at home every single day, we started using our phones way, way more. And we started messaging and FaceTiming more as a result. And even though it helped in a short-term aspect, you know, we were able to still keep in contact with all of our close friends and so on. Post-pandemic, I think it really affected our ability to have proper and real conversations. Like, think about this legitimately. How many people are you following on Instagram or your mutuals with on Instagram or whatever they follow you back, so on and so forth. And you can legitimately say that you have a really close and intimate bond with them, or even that you would simply just consider them a friend. Like, I can say straight up, there's people that I've been mutuals with for years, that are my friends, or that I know through work, or whomever, whatever. Or even maybe we just have similar interests and we just connected online. But I don't think that I could literally say for a lot of them that I have a close platonic relationship with them. And it's crazy to think that social media, a platform that was made to connect us together, that was made to be able to foster these relationships, has kind of led to a barrier in real life. And I feel like now more than ever, we're more divided. So it's really difficult to maintain friendships purely based off text messages and online platforms for people of all ages. Like, definitely for people that are older, that can be way more challenging because, you're not used to technology and this is a whole new world for you. But I think even those of us in Gen Z, if we're maintaining a friendship that's purely online, it's really difficult to keep in contact with those people constantly because you're not having that physical connection. You don't hang out every single day, or you don't see each other conveniently like how we may at school or how we may at work. And, I have friends as well that they've moved away because of university or whatever. But I will say I don't really know as much about their life and their day-to-day as I once did before, when I saw them every single day at school. So I think the idea that you can have a really consistent and strong online relationship is really difficult. Obviously there's exceptions, but it can be hard. And studies suggest that more social media can correlate to higher rates of loneliness, especially when people are passively engaging in people's online presence rather than engaging meaningful interactions. So if I'm constantly talking to you online and, I'm not really seeing you much in person, a lot of those online interactions, maybe I'm liking your posts or maybe I'm commenting a lot or whatever. That maybe isn't as meaningful as I go on a drive with my friend and we have a really nice, deep conversation. So this idea of passive connection is really difficult because it's kind of garnered the question that, is it able to sustain a genuine friendship? And post-pandemic, a lot of people became complacent. It was a whole year of isolation, maybe a little bit more. And it was really difficult to get back into the habits of meeting up with people and going out. And, it was hard. Like, you're at your house 24/7, you're alone 24/7, and all of a sudden, oh my God, you're back into the swing of things. You gotta go to work, you gotta go to school. And that can be really, really, really hard. And I think that has kind of bolstered into our current day-to-day. I feel like a lot of people feel as though they're unable to see each other, maybe as a result of other commitments, but a lot of people will just kind of flake or cancel out. And I've definitely done that before. I'm no saint, but it's definitely harder to meet up with people nowadays, and there's a bunch of different factors and reasons regarding such, which we'll get into later. But I feel like even though digital platforms at one point kind of acted as a lifeline for us during the pandemic, the lack of in-depth real conversations was really prevalent, and it kind of started to catch up with us a little bit. Not being able to see each other face to face really took a toll on a lot of us. And coming out of isolation, I feel like a lot of my friends, including myself, felt like we were really socially fatigued. The transition and the contrast of being at home every day, not really speaking to too many people. Maybe you're seeing them, but you're talking to them online, or you're talking to them through a call. Like, suddenly being put into having to see each other every single day, whether it be high school, university, or whatever, it was a huge shift, and it led to a lot of people feeling socially fatigued, or feeling like, they kind of fell out of loop with the people that were closest around them. Um, for me specifically, I decided to, in my first year of high school, in grade 9, I moved to a completely different high school. And all my life, I was in the same district. So I grew up there. I made friends there, all throughout elementary, all throughout middle school, and in that specific district, there's only one high school. So practically everyone that you know from elementary, you'll see them again at high school, or you'll see them again, the same people from middle school in high school. And I was supposed to go to that same high school as well, but during my ninth grade year, I decided to move somewhere else. And, we were in cohorts and everything like that. And then in my 10th grade year, I had moved back to the high school that I was supposed to go to. The the one that, I grew up with, the one that I lived my district through or whatever. And it was really hard because not only was I going to a completely different school from all the pre-existing friendships that I used to have. Like all these people that I used to be friends with in elementary school and middle school, I hadn't talked to them in a really long time or about like a year, because I had moved to a different high school. Compiled with the pandemic, I had talked to them less and less. So when I was suddenly thrown into, going to the school with all of them there, I felt like I had to almost rebuild a lot of my pre-existing friendships. Even though, I talked to them semi-consistently throughout the pandemic, just because talking on text didn't feel the same as meeting them in real life. And I know I had talked to one of my friends about this, and she felt the same way. She didn't go to a different high school like me, but what she did was she did her schooling online for ninth grade, and she had decided to go back to in-person school in the light following post-pandemic. And she found it really difficult as well because, again, it's the same idea about constantly being in isolation, and then suddenly we have to go back to our day-to-day. It leaves us really socially fatigued. So yeah, it's definitely difficult, and I think the pandemic was a really big contributor in our social interactions today. A lot of us felt like we weren't able to talk to our friends, or a lot of us felt this pressure to kind of reconnect with people that we had already had these pre-existing relationships with. And of course, there were a lot of different factors, but definitely that was a really difficult period, not only for myself, but I think everyone across the world globally. It was not an easy time. So something that I mentioned earlier was coming out of the pandemic, a lot of us felt, really socially fatigued. We felt like we couldn't really get back into the swing of things, and that led to a lot of people flaking out on plans, canceling, feeling like they don't have the energy to kind of commit to them. Now, following post-pandemic, I feel like a lot of people don't realize that we're currently in a recession, or we're very close to one at least. Inflation has definitely been a huge contributor in this. It has never been this high, and there's a lot of different factors that come into play with that, and I'm not going to go too much into it, but because there's so many economic changes that are currently happening in today's society, as wages decrease and prices continue to rise, the monetization of our friendships continue to increase as a result. So what exactly do I mean by this? Well, usually when you want to hang out with a friend, you're going to meet at a cafe or you're going to meet at a restaurant. But that inso takes money. Going to the gym with friends takes money. Going to a cafe with friends takes money. And it's not like you have to spend money. You can go to a cafe and not order anything, but it's likely that if you meet up with your friends at these places, you're going to be able to, or you're going to have to, or feel more inclined to spend money, whether this be like a $5 coffee or a meal, right? So basically, it's getting really hard to get together without spending money. And as a result of this makes the friendship feel more transactional than it actually is. And yes, there's the argument that, you guys could go on a hike, or you guys could take a walk around the neighborhood, or do a sketch, or make an art project, or just go to each other's houses. And it's true that, you can definitely get together with friends without having to spend money. But because our culture is becoming increasingly more monetized, it's definitely a huge contributor in a lot of people feeling like they can't go out or they can't join new communities or they can't make friends because of monetary issues. So definitely, people can go and sit and talk or go to the park and play board games for free. But pairing it with our shortened attention spans, that did derive or was definitely bolstered by the pandemic, as well as our need for entertainment, coupled by the fact that most working adults have little to no free time because of our work culture, and the need to make money has been, more prevalent than ever. It's getting really hard to just simply go out. So I just said a bunch of stuff. Let's unpack that a little bit. Basically, coming out of the pandemic, we relied so much on social media. It was a huge, huge factor in our day-to-day lives. And as we know, with TikTok culture, short form content becoming more popular in comparison to long form content, our attention spans are getting shorter and shorter, and our need for entertainment is increasing as a result. So yes, I could just go to someone's house and talk with them, and I could have a wonderful time with them. But would it be better to maybe go to a restaurant for, let's say, 3 hours and then go to someone's house? Probably, because I feel like that would be more beneficial towards me. I feel like that would be more satisfactory, just because of the way that our human brain functions now. But also with the fact that we have very little time. People are for myself, I'm working 2 jobs. I'm also in school, and I have this podcast too. And I'm finding it really difficult to, just go out with my friends sometimes. And I feel like a lot of people understand this feeling that, we want to be able to see people, but in an economy where we have to make money, you need money to survive, right? You need money to pay your bills, you need money to pay your taxes, you need money to eat, right? Or go anywhere even, transportation. Because of those factors, we need to be able to work. Or a lot of us don't have the privilege to just have money handed to us on a silver spoon, right? So as a result, we need to work for our money. And because everything is becoming so expensive, it's more so a reason for us to stay at home or work harder or, focus on work or school or whatever, than to go out with friends. Just because you have to couple in so many factors, like the fact that I'm going to spend money on transportation, or maybe I don't have a car and I'm spending money on Ubers, or so on and so forth, right? And then having to pay for a meal. All of these things makes it as though people feel like friendships are harder to maintain now than ever before. And a lot of people aren't really willing to put in this extra effort or go the extra mile to be able to preserve these friendships under these circumstances. So yeah, it's definitely been difficult for us. So as life gets in the way and we're dealing with work, we're dealing with school, low maintenance friendships has kind of become the norm. And sometimes distance is healthy. With work and school and everything and all the pressures of life, sometimes it gets really hard to maintain a friendship. And there's no doubt that, things get difficult. And I think people tend to get caught up in their own lives. Life definitely gets in the way. But I think people tend to forget that we rely on convenience as the basis of a lot of our friendships. So before I segue kind of into low maintenance friendships, what that all means, I'm going to talk a little bit about a story about one of my high school counselors. And, recently graduating, I kind of really understand his words more, and they really speak out to me. And back then, in the moment, I couldn't necessarily relate to it. I heard it and I was like, what is this guy talking about? But coming out of high school, going to university now, I really understand what he means. And his sentiment was that basically once you graduate, the people that you surround yourself with, think of this as your inner circle. So the 3 closest people around you, or 4 or 5 or whatever, will be the people that you actively choose to be with. And once you get out of high school and you enter the workforce, you're going to be actively choosing to see those friends from high school. And this means like actively choosing to meet up with them and actually put in the effort to do so. So what I mean by this is in high school, or work or college, those people in your classes are people that you see and you meet out of convenience because you're always in the same environment. You're always interacting with them. You're always talking with them. So it's only natural that, you're going to grow closer with those people around you. But if that convenience was no longer present in your life, if I'm no longer constantly in the same class with these people, or I'm not in the same work environment with those people, would I still be as close with them as I am now? With my friendships now, I'm choosing to see them. So for example, like my partner or even my friends, when I make plans with them, nowadays I'm scheduling them like weeks in advance or whatever just to fit my schedule, because I know my schedule's so busy with work and school and everything that I'm actively making time for them in my life. While before, when I was in high school, I just saw them in terms of convenience, so that was something that I didn't need to do as much. But I think low maintenance friendships have definitely impacted this. So low maintenance friendships are things that should come with time. For me personally, I have friends that I've been friends with for years now. And now going into university, some of them are across the globe. But we still keep in contact and we kind of pick up where we left off. And it's still a healthy friendship. But that came with time and energy and effort and years of investment into those friendships emotionally, where we're able to just do that. Where, I wouldn't speak to them for, let's say, 2 or 3 months, and then I'm still able to talk to them as if it was just yesterday. But we're only able to do that because we put in the effort to do so. It was years of friendship where we relied on each other emotionally, years of genuine connection where we're able to do that now, and we have so many common interests, or, we're so integrated into each other's lives. Let's say, for example, I'm talking to them about something that happened in class, and they're still just as interested. This is because I'm someone that they genuinely care about, or, I'd hope that they're interested in hearing their life stories or whatever. But if you go into your friendships expecting all of them to be low maintenance, then this could become really toxic. Because majority of the time it's one-sided. And without effort, you can't build proper relationships. You can't build proper friendships. So you can't complain about the fact of being lonely or the fact that your friends aren't reaching out to you when you're not doing the same for them. So for example, I can't sit here and be upset or have FOMO or whatever. And that's not invalidating one's feelings, but that's more so the fact that if I'm not putting in any effort in my side to reach out to my friends, to, plan those hangouts, to call them, to text them, but I'm expecting them to do that for me, then that's completely one-sided, and I'm putting them on a pedestal that they don't deserve to be on. They shouldn't have all these pressures on them to be the only one to text, to be the only one to reach out, because it should be a two-way street. Friendships, relationships, whatever, are relationships that both people are putting in the same amount of energy or effort. You can't just have one person doing everything and then the next person is just, kind of ignoring everything, and you're calling it a low maintenance friendship. That's not low maintenance, that's just toxic. So essentially, you should try to take the first few steps. If you find that, your friends aren't reaching out to you, try to talk to them, try to reach out, try to text, and try to call every so often, because that's the bare minimum of what a friendship is. It has to go both ways. And if you feel like, these people aren't giving you that, then vice versa. You want to be cared for in a friendship. If you want to be cared for in a friendship, you need to be willing to do the same. Vice versa, if you are choosing to have these people in your life, actually show it and put in the effort. Because the concept of a low maintenance friendship isn't really a friendship unless you've actually put in that effort in the past to make it that. And in his video, the friendship recession, Dustin Vuong mentions a lot of the time he notices that people who say they want a low maintenance friendship are completely or extremely hypocritical, because they will then get upset about their friendships not being as meaningful as they'd like them to be, but then they're not willing to put in the same efforts to make those bonds stronger. So essentially, the moral of the story is, if you treat others the way you want to be treated, if you want a caring and genuine friendship, you need to be able to put in that effort to do so. And you need to be able to put in that effort to have that relationship in the first place. And vice versa, your friend or whoever should be able to, or should be willing to do the same. Next, we're going to be talking about the rise of superficial friendships. We were talking about how a lot of the time within low maintenance friendships, we feel as though people aren't giving us the same, treatment how we would like to be treated. But with the rise of superficial friendships, we go into the discussions of transactional friendships. So what exactly do I mean by this? What the hell am I talking about? Well, with the rise of micro trends and social media within Gen Z, as TikTok rises and is gaining more traction in terms of popularity, we're getting more and more micro trends every single day. And a lot of this is to compensate for one's lack of identity. So micro trends such as the clean girl aesthetic or mob wife aesthetic or whatever aesthetic is happening every single day, so on, right? These aesthetics a lot of the time span past just the basis level of looks or clothing choice, but it's also the lifestyle that comes with it. So what do I mean by this? Let's take the clean girl aesthetic, for example. So the clean girl aesthetic comes with the idea of, yes, this idea of, clean makeup, minimal makeup, so on and so forth, the aesthetical purposes, but also the lifestyle aspects. So these would be constantly working out or consistently working out, doing Pilates, eating healthy, and even specific products are associated with these micro trends or micro aesthetics. So for example, Stanley Cups or Hydro Flasks or brands like Lululemon and so forth are all contributing factors to these aesthetics. So how exactly does this fall into the friendship recession? Well, Dustin Vuong brings up the argument that a lot of these people are making friendships subconsciously to fit their lifestyles and their aesthetics, based on how one would look or dresses or acts just in order to fit their aesthetics. And yes, there's exterior factors to this. So for example, if I see someone on the street and they dress similarly to me, I might feel more comfortable with them, or I might feel more inclined to start a conversation with them, or believe that we might have similar interests or hobbies as a result of this. Because, hey, we have similar styles, maybe this person is also similar to me. There's also cultural implications of this. So for example, I'm an Asian person, I'm Chinese. So I might be more comfortable with another Asian person because we're able to connect on topics, or hopefully connect on topics like cultures or who we are or struggles growing up or so on and so forth. And this might foster, a sense of community. Another example of this would be people within the same status. So people within the same socioeconomic status are more likely to become friends because they have access or similar opportunities. However, the issue arises when you decide to become friends with someone or friends with people that are only similar to you, because it places people in certain categories and kind of puts them on a pedestal and others not. So for example, if I believe that you fall into my aesthetic or my socioeconomic status or so on and so forth, I might view you in higher value in comparison to someone who's not. And there's been times where, I've been in a room with people that quote unquote fit my aesthetic, but oftentimes I felt like those friendships are really superficial or one-sided. There's been times where we could post on Instagram and look like we're having so much fun and look like we're having the time of our lives. But in reality, those hangouts were some of the loneliest I've ever felt, or it's felt the most superficial. In the sense where, we'll take photos for hours and we're all kind of left feeling a little empty. Vice versa, I've had people similar to me and it's led to some of my deepest connections. But my main point is, if you choose friendships based on purely aesthetic or based on materialistic values, and you choose not to be open towards other people, you could be missing out on a lot of really great friendships and really great connections. So, for example, some of my closest friends are completely different to me. Like I mentioned in the beginning, my rock story about how I got hit by a rock, those two people are completely different to me in every single aspect. And if you looked at us separately, it would seem though, none of us would ever be friends. Or even the guy that literally hit me with a rock, right? It seems like we would never be friends. And even the circumstances, he practically annihilated me with a rock. It seems like we would never be friends, considering the whole concept of how we met. But it's those friendships that open you to new people, new experiences, and so on. And it is so, so important to be around people that are different to you because it allows you to grow as an individual and learn new perspectives. So I guess my kind of point is you shouldn't get wrapped up in your head about certain aesthetics or will this person vibe with me or so on and so forth, because maybe you should just be open to people and maybe you'll learn a lot about them and also yourself. So moving into our next topic, we're going to be talking about the over-romanticization of romantic friendships over platonic friendships. So what exactly do I mean by this? Well, within society, oftentimes we hold romantic friendships in higher value in comparison to our platonic friendships. This is because with romantic friendships, oftentimes we glamorize the fact that they're more intimate or they're more quote-unquote raw in comparison to our friendships. And therefore, we decide to deepen the connection with our romantic partners, and we feel as if those relationships are maybe more significant in comparison to our day-to-day friendships because we're having those intimate moments or because they're seeing the real you. But what we fail to forget is that a platonic friendship can honestly offer the exact same deep emotional connections that romantic relationships can, or maybe even more. And if done truly right, it can be the purest form of a relationship because of the fact that there aren't the same obligations as a relationship in a friendship. In a friendship, you're not worrying about all these little things, or you're not feeling as though you have liability over this person, or you're responsible for this person. But within a friendship, there's not the worry of it feeling transactional, or the other person needing something from you, whether this might be an intimate bond or whatever. But rather, within a friendship, you're able to purely just enjoy the fact that they're there. You enjoy one another's company for the fact that that just is. And if anything, a platonic friendship is proof, if done correctly, that it can be the purest form of love. It shows that you can have a really deep connection with someone without the pressure or need for romantic feelings. And therefore, I feel like as a collective society, we should really recognize the importance of our platonic bonds and how they can be just as important or even more fulfilling as our romantic bonds. I think that's why there's always this stigma that, when your friend gets into a relationship, they suddenly abandon all their friends or whatever because they need to prioritize their partner. Or vice versa, where the person in the relationship feels almost a sense of pressure to win over their friends and feel like they need to prove themselves that they're still present in their friendships, just as much as they were before they were in their relationships. Or that they have to prove their partner as being worthwhile in the eyes of their platonic counterparts. Like, I need to prove to my friends that my partner is a really great person and has all of these amazing qualities. But I think if we made our friendships a constant priority as much as we did our romantic relationships, there wouldn't be a need for competition between your friends or your partners. And, no one would really be put on the back burner, but rather both relationships would just simply coincide and exist for what they are. None of them are going to be put on a pedestal because our friendships, our day-to-day friendships, are just as important as our romantic ones. So after all of our discussions and our thoughts and our questions, I just want to leave you with one thing. We're currently living in a time period where relationships, particularly our friendships, are being tested. And what we can do moving forward after acknowledging all of these issues is understand the importance of our friendships, the authenticity behind them, and the care that we put into them. regardless of how different we may be or how life may get in the way. So, what am I saying through all this? We've listed like a bajillion different issues with friendships and the friendship recession and how our society views it in a negative light. So what can we do to be mindful of this? Well, we can start looking at those around us. Are you actively choosing to make an effort in the people around you, or are you letting convenience dictate who and who isn't in your inner circle? The main point of this episode is to encourage others to invest time and energy into those who matter to them, to reach out to those who are most important, and have real and honest conversations with them. Don't let your friendships fall into the traps of being transactional or superficial. And don't forget that platonic love is just as powerful, if not more, than romantic love. It is pure and it's deep, and it deserves the same love and care and attention. And as a result, we should place an emphasis on making sure that, we're not just connecting from an online aspect, but also building bonds that truly last. So to conclude this episode, go ahead. Send that message, make that call, plan that hangout. And thank you for listening to episode 2 of Perfectly Untrue, the Friendship Recession. We'll see you next month. Stay tuned.